My pet snake has been in heat lately, constantly wrapping itself around me. Half asleep one night, I felt something cool wrap around my arm. I shivered awake to find Pink contentedly resting on my arm. I swear it gave me a smug look, like it had accomplished something. This was the 49th successful jailbreak, where it ended up on my arm. Fed up, I took Pink to the vet that night. After a thorough examination, the vet hesitated.
It seems to be in heat.
Just as I suspected. Oh, should I get him a female snake? I asked. I'm afraid that won't work.
Normally snakes in heat avoid humans, but in his case.
The vet shook his head, giving me a complex look.
He doesn't seem interested in other female snakes.
What should I do then?
Perhaps you could accommodate him during this special period.
This was asking too much. How was I supposed to accommodate a snake? The man before me frowned, glancing back at me with parted lips.
So this is why you've come to me.
I placed the terrarium on his desk and extended my arm to Evan with a pitiful look. Please, Evan. Imagine how terrifying it is having a little pink snake crawling into your bed at night. I'm afraid to sleep, and my skin is suffering. Look, Evan didn't even look up, his thin lips uttering just 2 words.
So dramatic.
Seeing Evan unmoved, I played my trump card. You gave me this snake, so you're responsible for it. Evan is my ex-fiancé. We grew up together, and our families know each other well. Our engagement was arranged by our elders, but Evan thought I was too spoiled and dramatic. He was always cold and distant, not nearly as lively as the male models I dated. At least they'd let me touch their abs. I got angry, and threw a fit about breaking the engagement. Evan didn't say anything, didn't even look up. On the day we broke it off, Evan was silent for a long time, his face half hidden in the dim light. For a moment, I thought he was disappointed about the breakup, but soon he just scoffed. Congratulations. That same day, Evan gave me a pet snake to celebrate my newfound freedom. I was terrified of cold-blooded creatures, but this snake was completely pink, gentle, and adorable, like a soft little dumpling. When Evan opened the terrarium, Pink immediately climbed up my fingers affectionately, settling in my palm and nuzzling my fingertips. My heart melted, but I never imagined a snake's mating season would be so troublesome. After thinking it through, I decided to temporarily move in with Evan. He's as cold as a snake and creepy. His intimidating presence might keep Pink in check. Besides, he caused this problem, so he should take responsibility. Evan's lips curled into a half-smile as he glanced at me. You're its owner now. Then he lowered his eyes back to the documents in his hand. Evan was so stubborn. Pink bobbed its head proudly in the terrarium, seemingly pleased with the word owner. Stupid snake, dumb snake, bad snake. Have you found a kindred spirit? Looking so smug, I crossed my arms and raised my eyebrows playfully, tapping my fingers in rhythm. I could just throw it away, you know. Pink's head froze, looking at me in disbelief, its tongue hesitating mid-flick, a stark contrast to its previous cockiness. Looking closer, I noticed Evan's fingers gripping the document so tightly his knuckles turned white. His voice seemed to catch slightly. You would abandon him? Of course not. I immediately denied, thoughtfully examining Pink. He knows too many of my secrets. What if he leaked them? Pink is incredibly perceptive. When I'm sad, it tilts its head and gently licks the back of my hand. When I'm happy, it bobs around, more excited than I am. During the time I've cared for Pink, it has completely captured my heart. I'm completely open with it, and share all my little secrets. Evan perked up, eyebrows raised. What secrets? They're secrets. I can't tell anyone else. Am I just anyone else? What else would you be? Evan let out a self-deprecating laugh, his whitened fingers gradually relaxing. I suppose so. I am your ex-fiancé. He emphasized that title heavily, as if venting frustration, though I couldn't understand what he had to be upset about. After all, he had agreed to the breakup. I've told Pink some bad things about you. You wouldn't want others hearing criticism, would you? I turned to Pink, asking with interest. Right, baby? Besides bad-mouthing Evan, I'd also made some bold statements and done many intimate things with Pink. Evan seemed to recall something, his earlobes turning slightly red, nearly crumpling the document in his hand. Seeing my confused look, Evan cleared his throat with a fist to his lips. Fine, you can stay. I won't stay for free. That northern property you've always wanted? It's yours. I understand Evan. He's a workaholic who prioritizes benefits. Besides, offering something when asking for a favor is basic etiquette. I don't want to owe Evan anything. He gently closed the document, leaned back in his chair, and let his gaze wander over me. So you're hiring me as a bodyguard? Protecting me from Pink is bodyguard work, isn't it? You could say that. Evan seemed to be in a good mood. His long fingers quickly opened the terrarium. Pink excitedly flicked its tongue, slithering onto Evan's hand, coiling around his arm several times before resting its head in his palm, nuzzling affectionately. Much more intimate than with me. They really were the same kind, naturally familiar with each other. I was fuming, feeling like I'd raised a treacherous snake. I'm the owner of both of you now, I declared. Yes, owner, Evan replied in high spirits. His thin lips curled into a smile, his eyes twinkling as he locked gazes with Pink. For a moment I was stunned. I almost saw Evan and Pink as the same face. I'm going to shower and sleep now. You two get along. Good night. I must be hallucinating from lack of sleep. With Evan watching Pink, I could finally get a good night's rest. I opened the study door but suddenly felt something was wrong, stopping in my tracks. Which room am I sleeping in? You don't know your way around? This wasn't Anderson Manor. How would I know? When I was little, my parents were always away and dumped me at Anderson Manor. Evan's family loved me and never wanted me to leave. Except for Evan, who remained ice cold, never smiling from the moment I arrived until I left, never initiating conversation. After our broken engagement, Evan bought his own villa to live alone, and I never visited Anderson Manor again. This was actually my first time at Evan's place. Evan is naturally reclusive, apart from his housekeeper. I was probably the only visitor. Well, me and Pink. The layout hasn't changed. You'll find it, he said. Thanks. Good night. I left the study and looked around. The layout and decor were just like Anderson Manor, so I easily found the room next to Evan's. When I opened the door, the layout was identical to my old room. Evan had always been obsessively particular. He couldn't stand even the slightest change to familiar things around him, which is why he couldn't accept me transforming from an ordinary person into his fiancé. After showering, I slipped into a wine-red silk nightgown and happily sprawled across the bed. Suddenly, I remembered I hadn't given little Pink his goodnight kiss. In this new environment, he'd probably have nightmares without it. I decided to go find him. The light in the study was off, and little Pink wasn't there. Seemed like Evan had already taken him to his room. What a dedicated bodyguard. I knocked on Evan's door. No answer. The door wasn't locked and was slightly ajar. When I pushed it open, the bedroom was empty too. I could hear the faint sound of running water from the bathroom. Figuring he wouldn't be out anytime soon, I decided to make this quick. I opened the terrarium and gently lifted out the dejected-looking little Pink. His eyes lit up when he saw my nightgown, visibly perking up. This was my little Pink's favorite nightgown. I planted a kiss on his head. Good night, baby. Little Pink flicked his tongue and licked my lips in response. Such a good baby. I suddenly felt sad, not wanting to be separated from him. Sweet baby, once you're through your mating season, I'll bring you back home, okay? While I was playing happily with little Pink, my eyes fell on a strange journal nearby with my name written on it. The handwriting looked familiar, definitely Evan's. Out of curiosity, I couldn't help but open it. Every page was densely filled with my name. The first entry was from the day Evan gave me little Pink. As I turned the pages, I grew increasingly alarmed. Master likes my new wine-red nightgown. Happy. Wine-red nightgown. Evan had given it to me, though he claimed it was a gift from a designer that he couldn't use, so he just passed it to me. Master hired a male model. Unhappy. I must destroy him. That day, right after I hired the model, my parents dragged me home for a lecture. I swore I'd just look but not touch, and they finally let it go after taking a large chunk of my allowance. It still stings thinking about it. Master let me wrap around her arm today. Happy. This was the first time little Pink went crazy and coiled around me. I was clueless and didn't dare refuse too harshly, so I let his cold body slowly wrap around my arm. He seemed to want more, but I angrily pulled him off and then consoled him with a kiss. The next line read, Master's kiss is so sweet. I want to taste more. The last entry was written 20 minutes ago. Master seems to have recognized my other form. Will she be frightened? Other form? What did that mean? 20 minutes ago I complained. Evan, little Pink seems way too attached to you. You guys are like the same species. But that was just a joke. Wait, back in the study, I did have a momentary delusion. But Evan was a living, breathing person. What other form could there be? This must all be some kind of prank. I shook my head, pushed aside my doubts, carefully put the journal back, and returned little Pink to his terrarium. As I was leaving, a mischievous thought struck me. Baby, do you think Evan is like a snake and also has a mating season? Little Pink tilted his head, his eyes full of big question marks. I continued. Cold-blooded creatures like Evan probably handle their urges alone, right? Evan doesn't even have a single piece of gossip about him, and he's not happy about our engagement. Sometimes I really question his preferences. Crash. At that moment, something heavy fell in the bathroom. Don't know if he slipped with his hands or feet, but it sounded painful. Little Pink also seemed disturbed, uneasily squirming in his terrarium, with a strange red mark appearing on his pink scales. Are you okay? I asked, concerned. I wanted to pick up little Pink again, but as soon as my fingers touched his cool scales, he jerked away as if shocked. This was the first time he'd ever rejected my touch. While I was puzzled, the bathroom door suddenly moved. Evan came out with just a towel around his waist, his expression still cold. He didn't seem surprised to find me in his room, but the tips of his ears had turned a strange pink, and his water droplet-covered abs were tinged with an ambiguous pink hue. I stood awkwardly, explaining hastily. I just came to give the little snake his goodnight kiss. Without it, he'll have nightmares. Snakes have nightmares. Evan raised an eyebrow and glanced at me while drying his hair. His muscular arms took on a beautiful brown tint in the dim indoor lighting, the same attractive color as little Pink's scales. Seen enough? Evan walked past me, his lips curled in a half-smile. His 8-pack abs were arranged neatly, making me dizzy. I had to admit, Evan's physique was impressive, better than those male models. Smooth, tight contours, his tan muscles bulging impressively. His long, strong thighs and prominent veins disappeared beneath the towel. The room's temperature rapidly increased, with a pleasant scent like morning dew after rain filling the air. Strangely, my heart raced when I smelled this fragrance. I was momentarily captivated and swallowed hard. Suddenly remembering my deal with Evan, I pushed him onto the couch and straddled him. I'd paid good money, so I could look all I wanted. I'd spent a fortune just to hire Evan to watch little Pink. It would be a waste of his talents. Evan frowned, his hands gripping my waist with natural dominance, his skin turning increasingly pink. You're treating me like a male model? I panicked and blurted out. You're not a model. You're way better looking than any model. Evan pressed his lips together unhappily. Can't I be something else? Something else? Right, I'm your master now, so you have to listen to me. He was the one who first used the term master, so I wasn't bullying him. His tense expression softened, and his thin lips moved toward my face, deliberately brushing past and landing near my earlobe. His gaze fell on the journal nearby, and with deepened eyes, he curved his lips almost imperceptibly. As you command, master. I turned his face and gave him a light peck. Just a kiss, he asked. What else? I raised an eyebrow at him. Evan's face quickly turned red, pink and delicate like a fresh strawberry, but the hands holding my waist were surprisingly cold. I gasped and wiggled my waist in displeasure. Evan, you're so cold, just like a snake. Evan pulled his hands back in panic. I'm sorry, I forgot. I caught his retreating hands and placed them back on my waist. I'm used to it already. It's pretty comfortable. Kiss me again. A flash of intensity crossed Evan's eyes, and he suddenly pressed against my lips. Wait, let me clear the room first. I looked around confused. What do you mean? There's nobody here. Well, if little Pink counted as a person, there was indeed a third pair of eyes in the room, staring intently at me. Evan smiled slightly, and casually picked up a towel from the couch, covering the terrarium, and completely silencing little Pink's protests. I was puzzled. He seems really upset. Of course he's upset if he can't have what he wants. Is he hungry? But he never had a habit of eating late-night snacks when he lived with me. Let him stay hungry, Evan said. My head was held firmly as a dominating kiss took over. I never knew Evan had such a wild, even emotionally uncontrolled side. His cool hands gripped my waist hard through the thin fabric. Master, you brought this on yourself. I was kissed until my legs went weak, my vision hazy. For a moment, I thought I saw his eyes change into slits. When I came to my senses, my finger was already between his teeth, pain exploding in my head. Evan, are you crazy? Evan seemed to suddenly regain awareness, and quickly released my finger. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. If you want to bite me to death, just say so. I pushed him away angrily. My finger had teeth marks on it, and tears welled up from the pain. I've always been afraid of pain, and Evan had mentioned more than once how delicate I was. Now, however, he suppressed the wildness in his eyes, and reverently held my fingertip to his lips, kissing it. Master, I'll be careful. Halfway through the kiss, my phone started ringing frantically, sounding particularly jarring in the quiet room. Evan asked without stopping, Do you want to answer it? No, I replied, hanging up without even looking at it. My phone started ringing again like crazy. Who could this be, disturbing my fun at this hour? The cake was literally at my lips. I grabbed my phone irritably, and saw Julian's name plastered across the screen. You don't ignore calls from your bestie. I shot Evan an apologetic look, hit answer, and pressed the phone to my ear. My free hand casually traced over Evan's chest muscles, rock hard. On the other end, Julian was sobbing uncontrollably. My heart tightened, and I accidentally pressed down too hard on Evan, making him grunt. Julian cried even harder. Wah, you bitch. I'm heartbroken and you're playing with a guy. I'm not, I swear. Let me explain. I don't want to hear it. You have to come keep me company tonight, or your bestie is going to cry herself to death. What could I do? You have to spoil your best friend. Send me the address. After hanging up, Evan crossed his arms, his face dark as coal. So you're just leaving? What about my situation? That's when I noticed the small tent forming under his towel. On one hand, my bestie. On the other, this gorgeous hunk with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. Both choices were precious to me. It was an impossible decision. After thinking for about 5 seconds, I gritted my teeth and closed my eyes, pushing all distracting thoughts away. You know, Julian is my bestie since childhood. If she dies, I won't have a bestie anymore. Could you live with that? She's not going to die, he said flatly. You can't say that for sure. What if she really does something stupid this time? Evan's face darkened further. Master, you really don't want me? Be good. I'll want you when I get back. Evan ground his back teeth, his grip nearly crushing my waist. This offer won't be available later. Good babies listen to their master. I cupped Evan's handsome face and kissed him. For a moment, I felt like a monster. But my bestie's life was at stake. I painfully tore myself away. At the front door, I paused, then went back to my room to apply perfect makeup and change into a sexy dress before heading out satisfied. At my destination, I pushed open the door to the bar's private room to find Julian hugging 2 male models, grinning from ear to ear, with about a dozen more diverse-looking models sitting nearby. This is what you call heartbroken and dying? I questioned skeptically. Julian looked up from her row of abs and quickly switched to a tearful voice. You don't understand. The guy I've been crushing on for years is gay. It's devastating. So you decided to punish yourself like this? With thousands of hot guys out there. Instead of dying over one man, why not just drown yourself in a pile of hotties? Words of wisdom. I'd been such a fool only hiring one male model at a time. So stingy with my meat consumption. Julian leaned in mysteriously and nudged me with her elbow. Baby, I found a perfect specimen just for you tonight. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, bestie. If I feast, I wouldn't forget about you. I don't need anyone. Really? Julian squinted, looking me up and down with a meaningful smile. Evan's too cold. He doesn't know how to please you. Listen to your sis. After you marry Evan, keep this one on the side for some secret fun. No one will ever know. I hadn't publicly announced canceling my engagement with Evan yet. He said we needed to pick the right time to announce it, or it would affect both companies' market values. Besides our parents, no one knew about this. Would you say the same about your crush? I asked. At the mention of her crush, Julian burst into tears again. Wah! Don't bring him up. My heart is breaking. 5 seconds later, Julian wiped her tears and pushed someone toward me. This is the premium guy I found for you. Don't say I don't look out for you. I took a good look and was stunned. Wasn't this Evan? The man in front of me had the same handsome face as Evan, even a similar scent. The only difference was he seemed gentle, with moist eyes like an injured puppy. Still I resisted. No, I'd feel too guilty. Julian thought I was just too embarrassed to cheat, so she nudged me again. It's his first day on the job. I checked him out, clean background, though he's an orphan. Sounds sad, but that broken quality makes him even more lovable. I shooed him away with a dark expression, waving my hands at the puppy-like guy. Sorry about this. Puppy boy looked disappointed, his eyes glazing over with moisture. Well, he was a professional after all. And I didn't know how late I'd be keeping Julian company. Being alone would be boring, so I inexplicably nodded. But before I could even get comfortable, Julian's crush showed up, threw her over his shoulder, and carried her away, leaving me and a dozen male models staring at each other awkwardly. I can't handle all of you. I cleared my throat. Hey guys, party's over. The puppy-like guy beside me tugged at my sleeve. Do you still want me? Such a simple request was hard to refuse. But before I could answer, I looked up to see Evan storming in, his face black as charcoal. At nearly 6'3" and dressed all in black, he cut through the crowd with an overwhelming presence. Evan stopped in front of me, eyes narrowed, gaze shifting between me and Puppy Boy. So this is your life or death emergency? Unfortunately, Puppy Boy chose that moment to ask, who's he? Great. Evan's frown deepened. You tell him who I am. Wait, the scene was getting chaotic. I felt like Evan was missing the point. Don't you think he looks exactly like you? Most people would be shocked seeing someone with their exact face. But Evan just gave Puppy Boy a casual glance, his expression completely unruffled. Not really. He totally does, I muttered. Something about this seemed to amuse Evan, making the corner of his mouth curl up. So you chose him because he looks like me? This was getting more confusing. I was about to explain when Puppy Boy asked in a trembling voice. You said you wanted me earlier. Was that because I'm his substitute? You said you wanted him? The room temperature suddenly dropped several degrees. I couldn't help shivering. To prevent further chaos, I tried to usher Evan out. Wait outside for me. I'll be quick. You're kicking me out for him? Maybe it was my imagination, but the docile puppy boy with downcast eyes seemed to be triumphantly wagging a pink tail. No, I just need to talk to him. After Evan left, I coldly asked Puppy Boy, "You two look very similar. Anything you want to tell me?" Puppy Boy stubbornly set his jaw, shifting his gaze away from my face and unconsciously touching his nose. "We don't look alike at all." "Fine, I'm going home then." I had hoped to hear some shocking secret, like he was a long-lost illegitimate son of a rich family, but apparently not. I turned to leave, but Puppy Boy hurriedly grabbed my sleeve. "I have nowhere to go. Could you take me home with you?" His eyes were reddening as if I was abandoning him. I couldn't resist and agreed. When Puppy Boy and I got into the car, Evan was nearly losing his mind. "You're seriously bringing him home? Please, Evan. He's homeless. I can't just leave him on the street. And what if I didn't agree? He has a face identical to yours. If he did something stupid, it could damage your reputation. So you're doing this all for me?" Evan's expression changed from stormy to sunny. He deliberately wrapped an arm around my waist, giving Puppy Boy a challenging look. Meanwhile, Puppy Boy's face turned extremely pale. Back home, I settled Puppy Boy in the guest room and went straight to Evan's room. The terrarium was empty. "Where's Little Pink?" Evan avoided answering. "He's all you care about." I rolled my eyes at him. "He's my pet, of course I care." Evan spat out bitterly. "Oh, he probably went out to play." The mansion was huge, and Evan hadn't locked the terrarium, so it was normal for the little snake to slip out for an adventure. Evan was acting strange, talking more than usual, and inexplicably irritable, completely different from his normally cold demeanor. I yawned and said goodnight to Evan, ready to go to bed. Evan grabbed my hand, his eyes full of hope. "Master, won't you keep me company?" "Be good, I'm tired." When I woke up, Evan had already left. As I was leaving the study, my foot kicked something. It was that journal. I picked it up and flipped to the most recent page. There was a single line. "No matter what happens, Master will always bring me home." The entry was dated last night. I stared at Puppy Boy for a long time, until he grew uncomfortable, his eyes darting nervously. "Is there something on my face?" I cut straight to the point. "You're Little Pink, aren't you?" "You already knew?" "I'd known for a while. Or more accurately, I figured it out last night. Someone as obsessive and reclusive as Evan would never allow a stranger in his house, identical face or not. Actually, from the day Evan gave me Little Pink, I sensed something was off. Evan was always meticulous. He knew I hated cold things, yet he gave me a snake. Unless he was trying to mess with me, but he wasn't that childish. The answer was obvious. I'd have to be an idiot not to see it. They were both so caught up in their male rivalry last night that they didn't realize how bizarre their behavior was. I pressed further. "Where did Evan go?" Little Pink's lips curled slightly, his tone smug. "He's the loser. He's probably hiding somewhere, nursing his wounded pride." I was exasperated. "You two are literally the same person. What's there to compete over?" Little Pink protested heatedly. "He was abandoned twice. I wasn't. Does canceling the engagement count?" But Evan was the one who didn't have feelings for me first. I only canceled the engagement because I was angry. As if answering my unspoken question, Little Pink continued smugly. "He got dumped and didn't dare do anything. Just had me stay by your side as protection. What a coward." "But aren't you him?" Little Pink puffed up angrily, his face reddening. "I'll say it again, I'm not him." He had a point. Evan and Little Pink had completely different personalities, like two opposing personas in one body, both able to appear before me simultaneously with their own independent consciousness. "He likes you but made you hate him. Unlike me, I only want to make you happy. When did I say I hated him?" "Wait, actually there was something. When I was 7, our families took us to a vacation estate. Being playful, I snuck my pet white rabbit up a hillside. I wasn't careful, and the rabbit escaped. When I found it, a snake had already killed it. That terrifying snake tried to bite me too." I broke down crying until Evan arrived just in time and chased the snake away, saving me from injury. He awkwardly tried to comfort me, placing his palm on my back, but I screamed and pulled away. So cold, I became even more hysterical. I hate snakes and I hate Evan too. After that, Evan never dared touch me again. I cried until I was exhausted, unable to get down the mountain, and my phone was dead. I could only sit on a rock and sob. Evan sighed, pulled his coat tighter, then turned his back to me and crouched down. I froze. Evan hated physical contact with others. Though curious about him, I never dared touch him. Evan sighed again. "Are you stupid? Get on before it gets dark. There'll be more snakes." Terrified, I scrambled onto his back. Halfway down, Evan's clothes were soaked with sweat, but he didn't dare remove his coat to reveal the t-shirt underneath. The whole way, I kept sniffling, and Evan whispered to me, "Not all snakes eat rabbits." Some snakes are cute too. They might be a little cold, but they can warm themselves up before touching you. I cried until I had no strength left, gradually falling asleep, murmuring, I hate snakes the most. After that, Evan became even colder toward me than before. If not for that, I wouldn't have angrily insisted on canceling our engagement. But that mountain path and Evan's broad back were deeply etched in my heart, unforgettable. The memory of Evan overlapped with the person before me now, mixed with that familiar scent, making me feel dazed. Don't forget, I'm in my mating season, he said. Cold hands caught mine, guiding them across his slightly damp abs. Little Pink had just showered and smelled exactly like Evan's body wash. I was mesmerized as my fingers traced over him, causing slight tremors wherever I touched. His pale pink skin gradually deepened to a darker pink, as my fingertips reached the black satin ribbon at his waist. Why are you wearing this? I asked. The pink snake looked down at me, his voice taking on a husky quality. You tied it yourself. Now untie it. I had indeed tied a black satin ribbon around Little Pink's belly on a whim. Now the pink-white skin against the black created an intriguing contrast. My index finger hooked the end of the ribbon and pulled gently. The ribbon fell away immediately. Below was the towel he'd casually wrapped around himself. I ran my finger back and forth along the edge of the towel. Little Pink let out a muffled groan, his face reddening to his ears, his entire body flushing with color. Then I pushed him onto the bed with one hand and straddled him, looking down at him from above. Little Pink's pupils had changed to vertical slits from extreme excitement, but I clearly saw the triumphant smile behind that innocent face. This was too much. I grabbed the blanket and wrapped Little Pink up tightly, leaving only his fluffy head exposed. The vertical pupils immediately returned to normal, and his handsome face tensed as he gave me a wry smile. You don't really think you can restrain me like this, do you? I hadn't thought about that. I pulled out chains and a riding crop I'd found in the study, locked them around Little Pink's neck, then climbed off the bed and coldly inspected him. I rolled the small riding crop against his handsome face. You and Evan share sensations, right? Whatever you just did with me, Evan felt too. That's why you're so smug. You think you've won. Little Pink stopped protesting and obediently lowered his eyes, looking pitiful. But I wasn't falling for it again. Also, you can hear each other's thoughts, right? Whatever I'm saying to you now, Evan must be hearing. I'd never let that loser hear my thoughts. Fine. I have other ways to make him understand. I patted Little Pink's cheek, confident that wherever Evan was hiding, he could feel it now. Baby, remember this, you haven't won either. Because just like Evan, you've been abandoned too. Evan and Little Pink had teamed up to play me, and I wasn't going to forgive them easily. I went home, packed my bags, and boarded the first flight to Switzerland. Before leaving, I made time to issue a statement unilaterally announcing the end of my engagement to Evan. As soon as I landed and turned on my phone, it buzzed with countless missed calls and messages, draining the battery to a low-power warning. They were all from Evan's family elders and Julian, nothing from Evan himself. I had just started typing a reply to Julian when my phone died. Whatever, I'd deal with it at the hotel. I hailed a car without looking and got in. By the time I noticed the familiar scent filling the car, it was too late to escape. Little Pink slithered from the driver's wrist toward me, flicking his tongue, and gradually coiled around my neck. Everything went black as I passed out. When I woke up, it was dark. No, my eyes were blindfolded. My hands were captured by cool palms, guiding me to touch cold, hard surfaces. I trembled as my fingers were controlled to dance across bulging muscles. The same voice spoke in both my ears. Can you tell us apart, master? There's a punishment if you guess wrong. Someone bit my left side, making me cry out in pain. Evan, that hurts. A hoarse, restrained voice came from my left ear. Master, you guessed wrong. A gentle chuckle sounded in my right ear. Wrong guesses get punished twice. I panicked, screaming as I tried to escape, but my hands were restrained, powerless. In the darkness, all my senses were heightened. Evan, you're crazy. Spoils of war are more fun when shared.